Here we go.
Okay, this is Tara and Jen from Go Full Amazon Podcast. This is episode 14. We are here today with a very good friend of ours, Steve Canter, who we affectionately call
Captain Canterzone. Our buddy.
Our buddy and friend, Mr. Motivation. One of the things we're going to talk about today, and it's going to be a podcast of evolution. There's a lot of topics we kind of want to bring into. But we want to kind of start off with the meaning of self-care and what that actually means today, because that definition today is constantly evolving.
Yeah, and I think that's really good this time of year to do this, actually. You know, I mean, we have our super motivating friend here with us, but also with the holidays coming up, I mean, this can be a little tricky time for most people. And, you know, it's always a wonderful time for family, but it can also add a lot of stress and, like, kind of, you know, unwanted feelings.
So to start out, like we usually do, we usually have a quote to begin. And the quote today is, "True self-care is not soft baths and chocolate cake. It is making the choice to build a life you don't need to regularly escape from." And I think this is particularly big for me. I know it's big for you. I don't know what's going on in your life, Steve. But for listeners out there that know us, I might as well put it out there. I'm currently going through a divorce. And so my definition of self-care is going to be completely different from some other people in my life. And we're here to talk about what that means. And Steve is probably one of the best people to talk to, because we see him show up every day and he is constantly positive. And sometimes we walk away and I'm like, how the hell does he do that? Because some days I just want to throw in the towel and be like, fuck it.
I know. Well, I think that and the reason why we started this podcast, or not the podcast, but we wanted to do this topic, and Steve just happened to be someone that we wanted to bring on. Of course, he has not said one word yet, so we're just going to kind of take over. But I mean, like, you know, I recently had a breakup myself, and then obviously on the backside of your divorce, Tara, is like, you know, we kind of have gone into this mode of like, okay, so in these moments, what do we do? You know, and we can use outside things to make us feel better, or we can go inwards and like really kind of find what it is that we're really looking for. So I know for me, my work has been, and again, like, my breakup was not like, it was loving and kind and like nice, but I knew I had to do my own work, you know, and then you have to do your work, because anytime that stuff happens, we either look to see what we can do better next time, or even what we did, because everybody has a part. That's why I always feel about it. Like, everybody has a part in any kind of thing that happens in your life, and how you want to handle it is really something that's important, you know, and where you want to come from, you know. I always call it the grow or go moments. You know, we talk about that all the time on this podcast. So
how do you do it, Steve? Can you just tell us your secret right now?
Well,
magic ingredient.
As we all know, you know, storms are coming.
Yeah.
And great church service today actually probably solidified that, or at least touched on a few of those things of just where your foundation is built, you know. And much like you're talking about with self-care, I mean, if you aren't, you know, there's constant demands on our time. Yeah. And it can get frustrating. It can be overwhelming at times. And if you don't have that opportunity to get some self-care, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, whatever it may be, and spend some time really just continuing to build on that foundation, and there's really no way to remain positive or upbeat during the times of the storms, right? Because I think it's really what are you rooted in, and I happen to be capable of being a little more optimistic and positive naturally than some people. I mean, I know it's not for everyone, for sure, and I'm sure my positivity can be quite annoying at times.
So Steve, we all work out together, obviously. So, and we laugh at Steve because he is enthusiastic beyond. And I actually call him. I said that he's got coaching Tourette's, because like he just walks around like most of the class going, "Woo, go after it! Woo, go get it!" Get some. And for me, I know if anybody, I mean, some people actually, you know, may not enjoy that, but for me, like, it fires me right up. Like, I mean, I pick up on that energy, and it makes me go even harder and faster and better. So I love it.
It's a physiological fact that you cannot not smile after you say woo, right? And then also it's just uplifting though.
Yeah.
You know, I think it tends to turn the dial up really on you and hopefully people around you, right?
Yeah.
But I do it as much for myself as I do for anyone else.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be contagious.
So what I find amazing though is that you're able to do that for a lot of people in your life surrounding you. And I'm sure that there are some mornings where you're just like, oh, I don't know if I can do it today. How do you get over that hump and just turn it on?
Yeah, I think it takes time. I mean, all of you, especially two athletic people like yourselves, you've heard, motivation doesn't last, right?
Yeah.
That's what, much like bathing. That's why you recommend it every day or whatever it is from those quotes. I mean, it's not about motivation for me now. It's self-discipline. And I also carry the weight of inspiring or motivating other people. I carry that weight with me. So to me, I don't say, well, if I roll over, nobody will know. Like, I send out a morning email every day. Somebody's going to know what that timestamp was on that email, 5 days a week. In the mornings when I do that, I post on social media, and there's some pressure I put on myself in order to be able to kind of answer that. And then once I'm up, honestly, then I start to really invest in myself to get my mind to that point, because again, I think 2 hours to myself in the morning is some of the most important time that I can have for self-care or what have you, to kind of build the person I want to be and things of that nature. And when it gets interrupted, typically I'm not the same guy.
It's so funny.
I'm not the same guy.
It's so funny you say that, because I think that like those of us that exercise the way we do, like I know for me, like I am a routine structure person that gives me comfort. So I know, like, I'm a morning exerciser. I know that, like, for me, that morning quiet time with my cup of coffee, and my bowel movements and my meditation and the things that I need to do in the morning. Like if I'm not taking care of those in the beginning of the day, I know my rest of my day is off. I know that for sure. And I know for me, like, part of my self-care is that, like, when I get into a relationship, sometimes that stuff goes to the side. So then I am not being my truest, best self in relationships. So in my self-care moments that I'm in right now, and my reflection right now, I am really trying to be good about knowing those are the things that are important to me. So no matter what is happening in my life, those things stay steadfast. And I think that consistency is the hardest part, especially when you're trying to take care of others and be with others and share lives with others and things like that, is to give myself permission to take that time, because it can be I'm being selfish or whatever it is, but I'm no, it really is setting myself up to take care of the rest of my day and my family and my work and my career and my friends and all that other stuff that I have to take care of, right? Don't you feel like you have to do that?
I would say most of the people that I have talked to that are going through a tough time right now, the biggest thing. So what do we usually say to them? We say, well, you got to take care of you first. And most people, and a lot of women and a lot of people who are in broken relationships, they're like, I don't have time. I can't do that. I'm being selfish. I have to give to my kids, and I have to give to this person. I have to give to that person. And I think we have to get out of the mindset that taking care of yourself for a little bit out of the day is not being selfish. But it's setting up so that you can give more.
But I don't think people know what that means. I think that's not, take it a step further. If you say, I need to take time for myself, people might be like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Do I pray? People might not be comfortable praying. People might not know how to meditate. People might not be into the exercise. So for us that have those things to go to as comfort, I can always fall back to that. I know how to fall back to prayer. I know how to fall back to meditation when I get off kilter. Some people don't have those cornerstones or those building blocks, in their toolbox.
To your point, Tara, they say when an airplane is going down to put your mask on first, right, before you help anyone else. So I think it's similar. You have to take care of yourself, or you're really not going to be as useful in being able to help along anyone else in your life, right? I mean, if you're not to a point where you're operating at, and none of us are ever operating at 100% probably, right? We're all going through some things, but the more efficient we can be, and the better we can be from a temperament standpoint, our patience and all those things, we're certainly much more useful and helpful to other people.
Yeah. I almost break it up into categories just because my mind works like that.
Yeah, we know you and your lists.
Me and my lists. But I break it up into the spiritual, the physical, and the mental and the emotional.
That's totally.
Yeah, and so speaking from a relationship point of view, because that's kind of what we started out with. How do you take care of you and Stephanie in your relationship? How do you give self-care to your relationship? How do you make time for each other?
With 2 little kids and full jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the bigger challenges that we encounter, just because, one, we don't have any immediate family or, extended family in the area either. So there's not a lot of free babysitting that goes on. We're fortunate to have some really supportive friends, so occasionally we will get out. And then, of course, you just have to try to make time. But you've got 2 careers. You have school committee. You've got I have my side business that I do. We all work out. I mean, all those things. So it's pretty difficult. We try to get the kids in bed as much as we can, as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
During the weeknights, and then spend a good hour having conversation. And we don't watch a ton of TV. It's just more so having good conversation and try to get caught up. We're also both fortunate enough that we work from home a lot together, so we do see each other during the day, where you get those those touch base and things of that nature. But it's certainly a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, we're definitely not out of the woods from that standpoint, but I think we've got a good foundation of how to at least work on it. And then how successful is always, there's some ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so good to hear you, because I mean, comparison, obviously, we have those of us on the outside, and we always say comparison is a thief of joy.
Right.
But we can look at you and Steph, and we're like, oh my God, they know how to do it, they got it all figured out, and and it's been really nice to know that you guys do, but it's also you guys work at it, you work at it, and it's and you really are both committed to working at it, and it's so nice to see the messy side. I mean, it's not really messy, because it's really not, but we always love when we see the authentic sides of the people in our lives that we love,
right.
Because we will sit there and be like, oh God, I know for me, I compare,
Oh, I do too. I mean, there's times where I look at my own life and I'm like, oh, I look like a train wreck on paper. But
I mean, we went to therapy too. We did that for about 8 months, and we feel like we got equipped with some tools, some resources, and ways to deal with some of the whatever may have been the problem at the time. And it was about 3 years ago, and it's always good to talk about those things and try to get a kind of a check-in.
Mm-hmm.
And I always recommend that to folks that I talk to that I know from back home or anywhere here that might be going through marital issues. And I always say, don't wait till it's kind of the last-ditch effort.
Mm.
If it's the last-ditch effort, you may have already hardened up and gotten cold from a heart standpoint, and then really one person is just saying, yes, I'll go, to kind of check the box to say you win, know. And I was very fortunate that, she's committed to marriage. I had some broken marriages and, the lineage of my family, so I think that was always a concern, that is divorce an option in my outlook, just because it's happened and it was accepted in my family. So we have worked at it, and we've gone in to seek out professional help from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's good.
I wrote down some things that I think are important to self-care, and I was thinking actually of you, Jen, because one of the things I think you have found that is your self-care is finding your voice to ask for what you want or don't want in a relationship. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that has been new. That's been a journey, and it's funny, and we've talked about that before, even here on the podcast, is that here I am, someone who's got a super big, strong out, I have a huge extroverted, personality, but when it comes to my interactions when we're in relationship with a man, I tend to shrink a little bit, and I tend to have a smaller voice. And I have learned over the years that doesn't work for me, clearly. But two, I've learned how to use my voice in an effective way, which doesn't have to come across as bitchy or demanding or anything like that. It's instead I've been able to learn how to pause, really get clear about what I want, and then ask for it directly, in a nice, calm, quiet, loving manner. And that has been it's only been as of lately, in all my years and all my relationships, I've learned that, because I know what I want, and I'm learning how to ask for it.
Yeah. And it's interesting watching you kind of have this journey and finding your voice. I actually realized that as strong as I am in my physical world, in every other area, I'm strong at my job, I'm strong with my kids, I'm strong with my friends and everything. I am not strong when it comes to relationships. I just kind of go with the flow, and I try to do whatever makes the other person happy, and then I end up shrinking back and sacrificing a lot of stuff, and that kind of makes an ember of resentment.
Which is a crazy thing, because I think people would never think that that's how we would be.
Right.
You look at us.
I would say that's extremely common, though, right?
Yeah.
I would just Steph and I both would avoid certain conversations too, that if they're going to blow up, or you just know it's uncomfortable, or whatever you have to talk about, it's a lot easier to avoid it for a little while, and then until it kind of comes to a head, right? So I would say that's extremely common for both, even if you're a big, loud personality.
Yeah.
That, I don't communicate effectively at times, just from a maybe tone, choice of words. There's all those things. I've gotten better. I can see progress. Should
we call staff pictures?
There's been some progress there, even with my children or what have you, but definitely my spouse. But I mean, there's conversations that I would say it's extremely common if you did a poll across relationships with.
And it's funny because that was actually one of the topics at church today about like living your best life. Is he said something about learning how to respond appropriately, which kind of goes with learning how to communicate appropriately.
Absolutely.
Thinking about like what you say before you say it, and maybe not saying everything you need to say. But I do know, I think the thing I've learned is I think you do have to have those uncomfortable conversations early on and speak what you want and what you don't want, so that it gives the other person a chance to respond appropriately to you. And they can have a conversation about it.
Well, and a lot of this has helped too. I know for me, like I think that, and you guys all sitting around here are definitely part of this team, but I think it's important to have people around you that you can have you can talk about how you feel, no matter how much shame you feel, and be like, okay, I did this, I feel this, and process it with somebody that's not maybe the person in the relationship. So that when you do then talk to the person in the relationship, you can be like, okay, I'm clear. Because if you come with unclarity, that's where that pause comes in, where I can pause, I can reach out to you, I can reach out to I can reach out to anyone in or my network and be like, okay, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, this is what happened, this is how I want to respond. And you can be like, well, maybe you might want to say this, you know what I mean? And then, because, my first reaction is to fly off the handle. Like, my first reaction is to, come out the side of my neck, and that's not good for anybody. And I find that with my kids,
a lot of times when you say it out loud, too, it becomes either less of a big deal.
Yeah.
Or there becomes more clarity, right?
Yeah.
It's easy if it happens immediately. We're now reacting versus now hey, we slept on it, we talked to a friend, we've got some counsel from someone that has our best interest in mind, and maybe our spouse or whatever the relationship may be as well, not just a yes man, right? We don't want to just hear what we want to hear, although that's a lot of times we call those people first, right? That are going to agree with us.
They're wrong. For some reason, I don't have it. My friends are all about the MFT. We call it the motherfucking truth. They're like, no, here you go. You want the MFT? You're
and you can appreciappreciate that the most. I think that's. I've been fortunate to be that person on the other line for a lot of people too, and I try to. I don't deliver it usually with as much profanity, but I try to bring the truth to them and give them the other side of it a little bit to the point where hopefully it's helpful. Versus just agreeing and then it causes some sort of rift between them and whatever relationship they're talking about.
So it's funny, you actually stated something that was exactly on my list, and that was one of the other things of self-care was surrounding yourself with people who have your best interests in mind, which I think that's one of the biggest things that's helped me throughout my whole situations. And it started my marriage was ending years ago, and I met Jen, and then I started building these people and friends, and I met you, and then I met Stephanie, and then I joined, New Life Church, and all these things have gradually been building me up to a point where I finally was able to make a decision with
because you had the support system.
Clarity, because I had the support system.
And I think people that don't think that that's valuable are so delusioned. And I think that, the people that don't know, you need to have a tribe of people that make you feel safe, and that you make you feel comfortable and make you, and love you in all of your parts. You know what I mean? In your messy, in your failures, in your good, in all of it. Celebrate your goods, but then also are there for you when you're I have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
And I appreciate that more than anything else. And I've learned to appreciate that more in my adulthood than I ever have before,
And I think that was something that came out of church again today, was having deep friendships.
Yeah.
And you and I listened to a podcast yesterday talking about being able to have people where you can feel shame, because at the end of the day, we all sin, we all have stuff that we're not proud of, things that we want to put in the closet that we're I hope nobody sees that. Because you don't want to be judged, but at the end of the day, you need some people who you can share that with without the fear of judgment or making them feel you're an awful human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some accountability that has to take place.
Right.
Right.
Not enabling you, but
Yeah,
saying
exactly.
like, hey, you were wrong, but I love you anyway.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I
Yeah,
forgive
it's
you.
got to come from
Yeah.
a place of love and,
Right.
and support. There's a reason that the 12 steps work for people, right? There's accountability there,
Yeah.
but they also tell you they love you and they're there to support you.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't just made up for,
Or
just
help thousands of
alcoholism or
people.
something else,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's a reason. And, I mean, there's a great book called Tribe by Sebastian Junger. Came out probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, but it just talks about like we're created to have this tribe of people around us, and that's where we thrive the most, and we get the accountability we need, and we get the love and support we need, but we, all those things. And I mean, we're hardwired for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what I love. I do love that. I love that, and it's funny because I think that like those of us who come from big families, or I come from a big family, and I found that my tribe, is very different than my like relationship with my siblings. Like you think that that's an automatic tribe that kind of happens, that you're birthed into like this tribe, but I know that I've selected people now that I get to choose. That I'm even closer with than I am with my siblings, and that's just a natural kind of like reaction to wanting people that can, I don't know, make me feel safe. I feel safe. I guess what it is.
I always say iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Pound the rock.
That's something that, and I wholeheartedly believe it.
Yeah.
If I'm texting you at 4:30 in the morning, hopefully encouraging you to get out of bed and make the most of your day, whether it's exercise or whatever it is. I mean, I just believe that helps somebody, and it helps me in turn trying to encourage and inspire someone else. I mean, I get more from that than maybe the person that's on the receiving end, but I just wholeheartedly believe that iron sharpens iron. So one man sharpens another.
When did that start for you? That belief system? Because that didn't come out of nowhere.
You know what? I've honestly just assumed either a leadership or coaching role ever since I've ever been an athlete. I mean, it just always was. Even if I was a younger person on the team playing up a level or whatever it was, I was always the one kind of rallying the troops. I was always the guy to put the rally cap on first, and I just happened to assume that role for quite some time. It's just something that naturally I want to encourage someone else to do better, whether they're part of my team or they're not. I enjoy watching other people be fulfilled, live better, be successful, whatever it is, and so if I can have a part in that, that's what I do. I was the guy that called all my teammates or my position group in college for when we were going to have 6 a.m. workouts or meetings. Called them at 5:30 to make sure they were up. Went by and picked a couple of them up, whatever it was. I mean, I didn't have to do that. I wasn't a captain. I wasn't even a starter. but that's just how I felt like that's my contribution.
That's your contribution.
Yeah. So I've always just kind of been that guy.
So you and I have talked a few times about like. Because we have a very similar personality, like in that, and I come from a very long line of people that are very much like we call them lemonade makers, like positive lemonade makers. My grandmother, my mom, my grandma. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of people that are. This is how we operate from, and it's been and you and I have talked about this, like to always make sure. That also is coming from an authentic place, because I know for me in my family there have been times that like we've had some tragic things happen in our family, and when you have that kind of positive attitude, here I am so like example, like my brother, I have a brother that passed away of cancer when he was 17. So believe me, there was grief and there was sadness, and that was something that we all kind of grieved and like went through. But there were definitely times where like because of the positive attitude in our family, we're like, but it would come across sometimes as like, but isn't it okay we had him as long as we did? And there's so many great things, and we're like, no, it sucked. Like I just I know for me as a child, and like even sometimes now as we've kind of like transitioned a little bit now to like with my mom and adult, like now we're adults together and stuff like that, I like sometimes I want to be like, no, we just wanted to suck for a minute. Like I want it to be okay to sit in the suck, and I think sometimes when we have that like rah attitude, that sometimes even when people come to me with like sad things, I have to be really mindful to not always go into solution and make it all better. So as a friend, I need to make sure I'm listening and having empathy and not always trying to fix it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Does that make sense? Because I just know that I wanted that sometimes in my life, and my mom and my grandmother, and like were so positive that I'd be like, can it just suck for a minute? Like, can I just cry and like eat ice cream and just like be miserable?
I think part of it is emotional intelligence, right? I mean, I think some people are more gifted with the ability to know kind of how fresh is the wound.
Yeah.
Like what would this person need to be able to kind of get themselves step by step and progress into just a better state.
Yeah.
Versus, hey, you're not going to pull someone right out of the well right now. It's not going to happen right away. It's going to be a progressive state. So I think some of that just is something more natural for other people than others.
Do you ever have those moments where, because you're obviously a hugely motivating person, but do you ever have those moments where something's going wrong in your life and you're just like, I just need this to let this sit and suck for a minute before I get up and
pull the bootstraps,
rally, and rally over it? Or are you just like, I'm gonna conquer this thing?
I hate to say no, because I think that just sounds like ignorant a little bit, but I don't remember the last time that something really tragic happened that I felt like I was down.
Yeah.
My wife and I had encountered some tragic events earlier in the year, and with Steph losing a baby, and we lost the baby. But of course, now I'm in a situation where I felt like I need to care for Steph.
Yeah.
So where we can't both be down. So it's one of those situations where that's probably the most maybe resistance I've had lately, in opposition to, I guess, positivity within the last calendar year that I can vividly remember. And it was just one of those situations where I'm like, well, somebody's got to be the person that brings the house along, and we can be positive. And Steph's a little more of a catastrophic thinker than I am. Right?
She says that all the time. It's so funny.
And I happen to be the exact opposite, which obviously probably makes this work,
yeah.
right? But I also wasn't the person that walked into the room saying, "Hey, get on up! Like everything's going to be okay."
You allowed her to have her process.
100%. Part of that is I probably learned the hard way over time, not just necessarily with Steph, but maybe family situations, but. I think a lot of it has to do with the emotional intelligence.
I love that phrase, emotional intelligence, because that's something that you grow into. I think you're right. Like I think that is something that I know for me that has been very true. Like I'm a much better friend. I'm a much better listener. I have way different empathy than I did before, because I would always do that. Like, all right, because I was a pick up your bootstraps and rally kind of girl,
sure.
And even for myself, like I've had to allow myself and give myself permission to be like, no, you can just sit in quiet for a little while and just feel it. And it will come to the other side, but it's okay to sit in it for a little while. You don't have to like push through it, because sometimes pushing through it comes out in other areas. Like Brene said that in the podcast. We were saying that your body always knows, like, you know what I mean? Your body always knows what's going on, and your body will respond. So if you're holding on to something that you need to really let go of, like it's going to come out in some other ways. Hypertension, blood pressure, you know what I mean?
Right.
Anxiety, cancer, like something like that. So we have to be really careful about that stuff.
I mean, the last thing that happened to me that I probably remember the most was when I got fired from coaching. But it was a situation where it was like, hey, this paycheck that's coming in, that was an average paycheck to begin with, is going to end in 6 weeks. Like, so what are we going to sit around and say, oh, now I'm not a coach anymore right now and sulk about it? Or are you going to say, hey, how can I make some income right now and find the next opportunity? Yeah. So I went and worked for UPS and was slinging, during the Christmas holidays. So if you were a North Kingstown resident in 2013 for Christmas, I probably handled your cardboard box, man, for Christmas. So, because we were slinging boxes and I was doing that, a handful of days a week or whatever, just to make sure that, we were earning and preparing for what was next, So you didn't have time to sit around and feel sorry for yourself. It just it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's probably a good time to transition into like how the physical sense, because we kind of touched on it a little bit as we were talking about this, but how do you, we all work out together in the morning and share that in common. How do you think movement and physical activity and being an athlete helps deal with like the storms and the winds that we deal with on a daily basis?
To everything.
100%.
It's everything.
I mean, if anybody ever comes to me, and I do work with some clients on the side, and they just say, hey, I'm in a rut. I'm like, take me through your routine. Like, what's your morning look like? Take me through what your day looks like. And then how much exercise are you getting? Because I do, and that may be the jock in me or whatever it is, but I do think physical exercise can impact every aspect of your life, whether you're in sales.
There's science behind it.
No question.
Yeah,
there's plenty of science. It's proven. But I just think it's so critical for me, for sure, that I get moving and able to kind of, I always say putting that armor on, right? If your foundation is built strong, then you're prepared for high winds. Yeah. If it's not, because you haven't tested yourself, you don't have the confidence from, overcoming hard things, then something hard is coming down the road. You know, there's a storm you're entering, and if you haven't prepared your mind and your body to weather that storm, whether it is going to be some sort of disease and something you're going to have to fight and conquer, or it's going to be a broken relationship and things that are going to really impact you emotionally or mentally, you're not going to be prepared for that. So I always say I need to be prepared. Make sure that what I do daily prepares me for those battles.
One of my favorite things, like my you guys all know my mom, and she's an exerciser, and so she's given that gift to all of us. Like, we have learned that from her. Like, even when my brother was sick, she's in New York City. The first thing she found once Rob was all set up in the hospital was she found a gym, and like that was still her routine. Like, so we are like, my brother is like dying of cancer in the hospital, and my mom is still taking care of herself. Like, what an unbelievable gift, you know what I mean? And like, now we as parents get to show our kids that too. Like, my kids see me go to the gym every morning. Like, they know that, like, no matter what's going on in my life, like, that is something that I'm consistently doing. Those are gifts that we get to pass on, you know?
And, you know, sometimes it's hard to translate that into words, but I know for myself, my whole physical journey has evolved over time, and it's always been associated with, like, big events in my life. Like, I was obese, I got picked on, I tried out for basketball. Basketball gave me, like, this sense of power and confidence that I was able to kind of like hold my head up high a little bit, stick my chest out a little bit more, and overcome some of the stuff that was going on in middle school and high school. And then throughout my life, like even joining CrossFit got me to this point where I'm able to handle this divorce process with grace and strength, because that's like one of the things Jen says to me all the time. She's like, how are you doing? And how are you doing this so calmly? And I'm like, I don't know. I just like, I'm okay. Like, I know I got this. And I think part of it is showing up every day, doing these hard workouts, getting through them. And I know that I will get through this. It's just another
there's
workout.
Something mentally about going in and like doing the workout and really it doesn't even have to be the level that we're doing. It does not have to be as intense or as to the level that we're working out, but like just moving your body. I know that it sets the intention that, again, no matter what comes down the pipe for the day, I can handle it. Like, I know, like when I found it when I went through my divorce and everything like that else, I was like, I know I can handle anything that comes down my pipe, and I need to tell myself that. And sometimes that is like, okay, if you can pick up that weight and you can move it that fast, like, you know, or whatever you need, whatever that goal may be for you, you know, you need to go walk that 2 miles, like you need to get outside and get the fresh air, like then you know you can handle anything else. To me, it's a therapy. It's a total mind-body connection for me. You know?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see my temperament change immediately, it's just mess with my workout routine. Right? It's like Steph's like, oh, I'm gonna be out of town for a week. I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do now? Right? I'm on the prayer list at the church. Like, just get me ready to go. But I think that's the beauty of being in a household where you and your spouse, they both work out. So we know how important it is to one another for our psyche, for our self-care per se, and then also for what kind of parents are we going to be? Because again, if you modify our workouts and you throw some wrenches in those schedules, I mean, things change how we respond and how we act, you know, and that's how important it is, at least in our home, for sure.
Yeah, I love that I stole the kids. Just so you guys know, like, I stole all the kids from church the other day, and Tara met us, and I took the boys all from church, and literally, like, what do you do when you hang out with me after church? Like, we went to the gym, I worked them all out, we went for a run around town.
We actually looked like a squad of ducks. It was like herding.
I think we had, how many do we have? 9? I think there were 9 kids. Somehow we picked up kids around town, and like all these boys, and we were like, what are we gonna do with them? We're like, oh, we're gonna take them to the gym. We ran them for a workout and ran them, and then they came home. We made we cooked hamburgers, and they watched football. I was like, this is like the best thing in the whole world. This is what they should do.
How do you think your faith helps in your self-care and your motivation and your ability to endure?
Yeah, I think I certainly want everybody to be a believer. I know that's not the case at this point. A lot of unchurched people or someone's had a bad relationship with, what they consider religion at the time. But my relationship with Jesus and my faith is so important, because I can't imagine going through this life, as difficult as it can be, only believing in me and my capabilities, right? And they actually touched on that a little bit today, but sometimes we reduce the size of God and what he's capable of, and by saying, I'm not going to bring that that problem to him, because this problem's pretty big. It's like, well, listen, man, you serve a mighty God. And so I do. And I believe that I have the opportunity to have a ton of self-confidence and the ability to overcome these things because I do have great faith, and I do. I have been led in the direction that I think is important. And I try to model that the best I can at my home, out in public, whatever it may be. You get in trouble for saying ma'am around here in New England, so you have to say miss, and I've modified that, but I just think the faith is what keeps me going for sure.
How do you think God speaks to you? Because when I see you in church, you seem to get a deep experience from it, and sometimes I look over and I'm like, am I supposed to be feeling something? and I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Because sometimes I'm just there listening, and for me, I feel like I love going to church and I love hearing the words, but I actually feel like in my faith, I feel like God comes through to me from other people in my life. How does He speak to you?
Well, I am a meathead, but I'm kind of an emotional guy too, but like music speaks to me quite a bit. I don't follow any like new music. I just through when I go and we're worshiping at church, I get moved. I do every week, and I feel like it's very cleansing to me, and it's much like I can tell if I miss a week of church just by what my Monday looks like, probably. So I do get moved through the music. I just feel a sense of getting an opportunity to get some renewed strength each week, whether it's through the music or the word, and something that's speaking to me specifically. It may just be one bullet point, one little small scripture about kind of being able to keep the energy and just be resilient, whatever it may be. I think the Bible offers you those opportunities to read some words that just will just move you to be better and to have an opportunity to be strong through whatever the storm may be, your situation may be.
Yeah, I know that for me, like the music always gets me. I mean, the music, I'm so touched by the music, and that's when I'm usually like right into like whatever. I mean, like like everything's quiet, like, and I can just feel like I'm exactly the same way. And I think we're lucky because our pastor is able to deliver the message in such such an easy way to understand and apply it to your life. So I always leave with some sort of, because I'm an action, like give me an action, give me a plan, and like sure. I will do that. Like I need to hear that. So for me to find what we have at our church is so nice, because I'm like, I always have that bowl to go to, and I can always go back to it. And it's nice because I can talk about it with the boys. So we leave and we're like, okay, what did you guys talk about? And this is what we talked about. And then I usually tell as many friends as I can. I'm like, this is what we talked about today. Sure. And even if they don't go to our church, I'm like, this was the message today. And I can just give them a bullet and like I send it out to like people and they're like, okay, thanks, Jen.
Yeah. See one, do one, teach one, right? So
I love the music, but I don't get moved. It's usually like what you said, like listening to the sermon, and usually it's funny how the world works, because it's usually a message that I need right in that moment.
God. That's God. That's right. That is always a God thing.
And I'm like, okay, I hear you.
Well, I think that's, we can continue to talk about faith, of course. I think that's one of the reasons that people tend to maybe jump churches and things like that too, is you're not patient enough, because not every sermon is going to speak to you directly. It's speaking to the person that's right next to you, whether it's your spouse, it might be someone that you don't know. I believe that's how God works. I mean, there's plenty of times where I go on Sunday and I'm fading, right? I'm not hearing it, and it's the music was great, and then it's like, ooh, kind of dies down, and then but then the next week, wow, it's completely on fire for me. It was exactly what I needed to hear. And I have those conversations with Pastor Keith quite a bit, but I think that's where people become like just impatient with faith and impatient with maybe a specific church, and say, I'm not happy here. Yeah. Well, just because it didn't speak directly to you, or the music wasn't your favorite song this week, or whatever it may be, right? We just, we tend to get, especially if you've gone for a while, it's one of those situations, much like marriages, relationships, whatever.
But I think it's important too that we talk about, like, just because I think that faith doesn't always have to mean that you're going to church. Like, I think that it's really important to know that the faith is believing in something bigger than yourself. Like, you know what I mean? And whether you call that God, or whether you call it the universe, or you call it Muhammad, or like whatever Buddha, whoever it is, like, I always am a believer. Like, I would never put what I believe onto somebody else. Like, so I know for self-care, like when I always go back to self-care, is that like, you need to have some sort of root in some sort of faith. life. Like, like that's it. Like friends, fitness, faith, family. Like there's all those F's that I always am like, that is exactly what my self-care are. And that's what that means, you know? And like, I think I don't think you can have true, authentic self-care without having some sort of faith in whatever it is, love, God. Like, I mean, I don't care what you call it, you know, but something bigger than yourself, you know?
Yeah. I would struggle if you were just going through kind of aimlessly walking through life with no direction and no faith, you know, it would be what an unfulfilling journey, you know. I do think you just have to live in a way that someone says, man, what's that guy on? You know, like, what is that person all about? You know,
I think that happens often. I
often wonder what you're eating.
At 6 a.m.
It's either pre-workout or Jesus.
Yeah, right. About 6:48, people are like, "What is wrong with you?"
I know. I do want like the Canter juice. That sounds dirty, but that's not what I mean. But like whatever you're drinking, I want it.
I told him we shared a slam ball the other day, and there was so much Canter juice on that slam ball that I was like, Steve, I'm like, this is the most disgusting.
I've been wearing deodorant now for you to the workouts now, so I don't want to hear any complaints at this point. I've changed out shirts. Done all these things that at least make it, you know, I do care about
the community thanks you.
Care about the tribe. I want to make sure I'm not being selfish in my own ways.
I know. Stephanie at one point was like, do people think he doesn't have a wife? I'm like, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think so.
I do my own laundry, so she's off the hook for any of that.
We love you. What do we call it? Powerful. What do we call it? Well, you always said something about his stink.
I don't know.
You know, something like he smells like power, or he smells like, I don't even know what. You had always some funny things to say about it.
It's productivity, though. That's definitely what it is. You know?
Oh my God, yeah. All right, roll it back. What was the last one you had on there? Oh, you had it, spiritual and faith. So we physical. So go through them again. Did we hit all the topics?
I think we hit all the topics. I think we did.
We did spiritual, physical,
emotional. I think that goes with like spiritual and faith, and you know, believing in something else bigger than yourself. Because at the end of the day, I think, you know, if you only believe in yourself, we're gonna fail miserably. It's a lot of pressure for us.
Well, and I think that too, and I think that you'll agree to this too, is that it's evolving. Don't you feel like that? Like, so the things that you were doing 10 years ago to like take care of yourself and to like even your morning routine or whatever your plan was, like that has evolved in the last 10 years. Like I know for me, mine's changed over the last couple of years too, because I know my needs change, you know, so whatever I was doing, it always has to grow with like how you're growing. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I think, and we talked about this a little bit last week when we were together, but it's you know, your diet is not just what you're eating, it's what you're feeding yourself, you know, whether it's positivity through friends, through what you're listening to, whether it's music, whether it's podcasts, other information that you're getting. I mean, those are things that are really feeding your soul with what you need. And if it's constant negativity, then clearly that's the quicksand crowd, right? That's pulling you down.
And the way you phrased it was like you got to focus on like the 80% that you're doing right every
day,
because there's going to be something that you do wrong every single day.
And give yourself more credit for the small wins. I mean, getting up on time is a small win. I mean, that's something that you should celebrate if that's the level you're at where it was a struggle. So I think the focus on 80% of things you're getting right is critical to being able to continue to grow and move in the direction you need to.
You're not even doing a podcast.
We are, honey. Can we say hi to everybody?
Hi.
This is Super Cooper.
This is Cooper.
Mom is not, Lawson's not letting us play the play.
Okay, I'll be down there in 1 second, okay?
Okay.
Go play with your friends.
Oh, okay.
This is our podcast life.
What's up, boy?
And there's Cooper.
And that's the reason you need self-care.
And that's why I work on a regular basis. All right, so I said my self-care bullets are family, faith, fitness, friends. What else do we have to add? What are yours?
Yeah, I would say faith, family for sure, fitness, and then I get self-care through helping others. So whether it's encouragement or service or what have you. I mean, that's one of my go-tos in a morning routine is how many people can I touch base with today that maybe I haven't talked to, or that I maybe get a sense.
You're so good at that.
Maybe I have a sense of it through people's social media. A lot of times if I'm friends with you or follow you, I kind of know when things are going right or wrong in your life.
Yeah.
And that you may not even have come out and said it publicly. And it might be people I just know and not necessarily great friends with. So.
You've actually reached out to me a few times and I was like, holy crap. I'm like, he just freaking knows.
Yeah, I'm fortunate with that. One, again, I'm honored that I have the ability to help others in that way, and I try to cast the widest net I can. I try to touch base with former, classmates, teammates, whatever it is, on a regular basis. So I really kind of hold myself to that and try to do that in the mornings every day, and whether it's weekends or weekdays. And then again, I gain strength from that as part of my self-care.
Yeah. What about yours?
I agree with all of them: the friends, family, fitness, food, and also my work too. I'm fortunate enough to I get to see people in some of their scariest moments, and I used to kind of downplay it, but it's a big responsibility to. Some of these people are having elective surgery, which isn't a big deal, but there's some people having emergency surgery, and they're wondering, going back to sermon, if this is their last. Is this their last word? Is this their last time that they're going to, are they going to wake up at the end? And I've had the privilege of being with people in that moment, and I don't tell people it's going to be okay, because I don't think that's fair. I don't know if it's going to be okay. But the thing I always say is, I'm going to be with you the entire time.
That's a nice thing to say. Yeah.
And so I get a lot of strength from work.
Yeah. And not being alone.
And not being in people, and not letting people feel like they're alone, and just letting them know I'm going to be there.
Look at that big pink heart of yours.
I know.
Nice.
It's
we rise by lifting others, right?
We rise by lifting others. I love that.
Good opportunity to do that.
Awesome.
So in closing, we always close with a quote, and this quote actually came from a service at our church a few weeks ago, and it spoke loudly to me, and I hope it speaks loudly to you all. Do all that is in your heart. Do as you wish. Behold, I am with you, heart and soul.
Oh, love it. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Honored to be here. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, awesome.